Hi, welcome to JPPI's Israel at War, the Jewish People's Podcast. I'm Noah Slapkov, in for Yaakov Katz. Today, we are honored to have Lance Davis, the CEO of JNF Canada, an organization that has been at the forefront of transformative projects in Israel for decades. Recently, JNF Canada has faced an unprecedented legal challenge as the Canada Revenue Agency decided to revoke their charitable status, a move that has stirred significant public and media attention. Lance and I discussed the challenge JNF Canada is facing, how they have fought and navigated through a biased bureaucratic decision and remained steadfast in their mission. We also discussed the impactful and vital work JNF Canada is doing to help rebuild Israeli communities destroyed by the October 7th Hamas attack. Have a listen, and we hope you enjoyed the episode.
Lance Davis, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. I haven't seen you in a while, Noah, so I'm delighted to have this conversation.
Full disclosure to the audience, you and I go way back. You've been a good friend and a good mentor since my days of being in university in York University. So it's nice to have you on the podcast. And JNF has been, JNF Canada, which you are the CEO of, has been all over the news, both in Canada and Israel. Tell us why.
So, unfortunately, our regulator, called the Canada Revenue Agency, we'll call it CRA for short. It's comparable to the IRS in the United States for many of your listeners. The CRA decided to revoke our charitable status. And JNF contends that this was done in an unjust manner. It was done through a biased process, and we weren't afforded due process, which are all foundational values that Canadians hold dear. So we've decided to appeal this decision to revoke. We're going to court, and we're going to allow the judicial system to adjudicate the matter.
And what is the CRA claiming that you deserve to have your status revoked?
Right. The foundational issue is that in 1967, when we were incorporated as an official charity, we had been operating in Canada for more than 100 years. Long before statehood, JNF was involved with a whole host of projects. And in the 1960s, the Canada Revenue Agency's predecessor, Revenue Canada, decided to modernize the charitable sector. So all sorts of charities registered as a charity in order to provide their donors with a charitable receipt. And we agreed with the CRA that our charitable object, our purpose for existing, would be to provide indigent laborers, mainly new immigrants, with small salaries in order to plant trees, dig reservoirs, do all sorts of public amenities that would enhance the environment and the quality of life for Israel. And that would be our way of combating poverty, because if they had a small salary, they would be off of the welfare rolls. They wouldn't be living in poverty, and having a simple job gave them a dignified life. And that was our approach to combating poverty. We agreed to it in 1967. We've been functioning that way for the last 60 years. And then in 2014, the CRA arrived and said, we don't believe that this object is charitable. And that began the downward spiral towards where we are today. So it's actually something fairly bureaucratic that could have been negotiated, could have rewritten our charitable object. It happens all the time. But unfortunately, there was no dialogue, collaboration, anything of that sort with the CRA over the course of about a 10-year period. And that's incredibly unusual behavior, especially for a venerable charity like JNF with 100 years experience, 100,000 donors from coast to coast. Something was indeed quite unusual about our file.
Just to understand this, so JNF Canada, is it exactly the same as JNF? Are you part of the same organization?
Yeah. It's a great question, and there's it's like the usual Jewish alphabet soup. So that also is a piece of the puzzle. Is CRA contended that JNF Canada was basically a subsidiary of Karen Kayemet L'Israel, KKL, as you're probably many of your Israeli listeners are familiar with. So KKL which was the foundational organization going back to 1901 that established this global enterprise called the Jewish National Fund. And then over the course of the decades and whatnot, every country developed their own independent institution like JNF USA, JNF UK, JNF Canada. So as I said, in 1967, we became an official Canadian charity, our own board, own governance, own bank accounts, own decision-making. So there was certainly auditors who believed that we were conflated with KKL. What KKL was us and we were them. But we really have tried to demonstrate over the last number of years that JNF Canada is an independent charity. KKL works for us, not the other way around. We select the projects. We flow, if they're our agent and we have an agency agreement that's robust, we flow the money to them. They then ensure that, let's say we're working on, let's say, a playground for special needs kids. They ensure that the milestones are met. We flow the money as the milestones are achieved. And we have our own professional on the ground who keeps an eye on our projects to make sure that everything is going smoothly so that we have direction and control. So we really wanted to make it very clear to the CRA that they work for us, not the other way around. But I can tell you that our detractors do believe that we're one and the same organization. And our file is filled with hundreds, if not thousands of pages of complaints about JNF Canada, where they're really talking about the work of KKL. And again, for a Canadian audit, they should only be concerned about what JNF Canada is doing or not doing.
So this is basically a branding thing. You're branded as JNF with the Canada at the end, but they're confusing the fact that you're JNF Canada, which is an independent organization that works with, or as you say, the JNF Israel, KKL, they're working for you in the sense that you're telling them what you want to do and you do that. So it's not like you're arm's length. You're completely different organizations. And JNF Canada, you see in the press that they claim that JNF has been buying up Palestinian land. When was the last time JNF Canada even bought land in Israel? Is that something that you do?
So we don't own any land in Israel. That's not our MO. JNF Canada builds projects that enhance the environmental and social service infrastructure for the citizens of Israel. All citizens, I really want to emphasize, we don't just benefit Jewish citizens. It's regardless of your background, your religion, your ethnicity. Besimcha, join and enjoy the projects that we build. So yes, certainly it's a real myth that we own land or that we're buying up land. It's not the case at all. When we do pay for a facility, for example, like if we build a PTSD center, we don't own that center. We make a gift agreement between us and the charity with whom we're collaborating. Because JNF Canada does not want to own and operate a PTSD center. We don't have that expertise. Our expertise is raising money and building connections between Canadians and Israel. So we'll give that PTSD center to an Amutah in Israel, to a foundation in Israel, who will then be responsible for the management and operations of that center, for the economic life of that building. So for the next 100 years, that PTSD center will be there and will be providing mental health care for Israelis of all walks of life. And they own it. It's our gift to them. And it's the same model as if we were making a gift of a medical center in Ethiopia or Italy or Israel. It doesn't make a difference. It's the same methodology, and we follow the appropriate CRA methodology.
So if someone goes into a kosher restaurant and they see a blue and white change container that's the iconic JNF boxes, the blue boxes, someone puts money in that, where does that money go?
Well, if it's a blue box that you find in Canada, it comes to JNF Canada. If it's a blue box while you're at a deli in New York, it goes to JNF USA. And if it's a blue box in a fish and chips restaurant in London, it goes to JNF UK.
So that money doesn't go into the container, and then you keep track of how much you owe JNF and you give them the money.
No, right. There's no owing. It's a collaborative relationship. So we have many agents in Israel with whom we work. KKL is one of many. They're our largest agent for sure. But if JNF Canada's board of directors says, let's build a playground for special needs kids, and we determined that KKL is the best partner to build that playground, we then collaborate with them and say, we're going to flow the money to you. You're going to demonstrate the milestones that things are getting done. We're going to reimburse them for expenses undertaken. There's a whole methodology that we follow that is basically driven by CRA's demand for direction and control. So indeed, KKL provides us direction and control over the money that we send. But as I said before, they're our agent, because we are not a charity on the ground in Israel. We need somebody on the ground to do that work for us. So it could be KKL, or it could be the Sderot Foundation, or it could be a different Amuta. It really depends on who is the best at doing what it is that we want to do.
Okay, and how? There's also this criticism that JNF is operating in the West Bank, and this is also something you hear a lot. Where does that come into this? That do you have a distinction between operating within Israel, within the West Bank?
It's a great question. For years, JNF Canada did a small number of projects in the disputed territories. It really wasn't our bread and butter, and certainly we didn't do things in places like Hebron or Ramallah where it would cause upheaval. For example, Canada Park is a gigantic park. I think you've told me that you visited there, and it straddles both sides of the Green Line. CRA brought it to our attention as part of our audit, saying that this was a violation of Canadian public policy. Our response was, it's not. Canadian public policy does not require a charity to withdraw projects from the other side of the Green Line. Nevertheless, we said to the CRA, we want to be collaborative, we want to be cooperative. We're going to stop doing projects that cross the Green Line, and because we want to get this audit solved amicably. And the reality is that CRA actually walked back this point. They haven't brought up this Green Line business again. And I think they really came to the realization that indeed there are dozens of charities that operate on the other side of the Green Line. It's not a violation of Canadian policy. And this isn't something they should be hanging their hat on. And even in the letter of revocation that they sent us, not one mention of the disputed territories.
What's funny about Park Canada is that it is full of Arab people enjoying it. Like, it's not like if you go there on Shabbat, which I often do because it's a great park. I bike there. It's 15 minutes from me, close to Modi'in, and you see that it's a joke because you hear this perception of JNF as being this like racist organization, but if you look at who's enjoying the parks, it's in the case of Park Canada, because of its location, it is full of Arabs enjoying the park. And it's quite peaceful that you have Jews and Arabs parking together, enjoying the park. And,
we're thrilled when people talk about this. I'm often in Jerusalem on Shabbat, and I'll go to Teddy Park, which was a joint project between the Jerusalem Foundation and JNF. And if you go to Teddy Park on any given Shabbat, especially in the heat of the summer, because there's water features, it's filled with Arab families, Haredi families, modern Orthodox families, secular families. It is a slice of Israeli life. And I get so much pleasure seeing all these different kids playing in the splash pad and knowing that we had a small part of realizing this. And it's, as I said before, we're an organization, although Jewish is our first name, we're not exclusively Jewish. We're here for the benefit of all residents and citizens. And we take great pride in the fact that all residents and citizens have access to our facilities or amenities. And it's part of our DNA. And I think Israelis are proud that the charitable sector is welcoming to all walks of life. And I think Canadians also take pride that in the projects we build are available and encouraged for people from all walks of life.
You had mentioned earlier that the regulations require that you are providing employment for people. So what is this still something that's relevant, and how
Right.
how does that work in practice?
Right. It's a great question. So when the audit took place, it took place in 2014, and they were focusing on years 11 and 12, years before I joined JNF. So we're already talking about, more than a decade ago, already, 12, 13 years ago. The auditor basically said to us, like, I don't accept this as being a charitable object. This is a problem. You're going to have to change it. And as I said before, we've really wanted to be collaborative the entire time. We asked the CRA on the record at least 10 times to sit down and to meet with us, to work with us. We asked the CRA to educate us. We wrote them a letter saying, we don't know what you want from us. Send us an educational letter and we'll put it into practice. And their response was, it's not our job to educate you, even though that's on the front page of their website. Okay, so when we came to the realization that we were not going to be able to convince the CRA that funding indigent laborers to do things like digging reservoirs and planting trees was a satisfactory object, we moved towards funding capital infrastructure, environmental and social service. And as I said before, we just followed the same model. If you're going to build a hospital in Ethiopia, we'll do the same methodology of building a hospital in Jerusalem. And that's really what we did. We sent CRA 10 objects that we borrowed from other charities that they had approved, saying, pick any of these, we'll work with them. And they didn't approve any of them. In order to change your charitable object, you need to get CRA's pre-approval. So our lawyer guided us saying, you can't just, say, this is what we're going to do. So we sent them these 10 objects. They didn't engage with us, but we just knew we had to demonstrate to the CRA that we take their guidance seriously. So again, like using the same model as building a hospital in Ethiopia, we built a hospital in Jerusalem. And that's what we've been doing for the last number of years. And we've walked back from this indigent labor modus operandi because it was just evident we weren't going to win on that.
And how much money are we talking about? How much money is JNF Canada giving to these projects?
It depends on the year, but some years will flow 10, 11, 13 million dollars. Some years a little bit less than that. But so it is significant amounts of money. It really depends on how you look at it. When you look at the hundreds of millions that flow from Canada to Israel, it's a relatively small amount of money. But when you look at, for example, Kibbutz Kisufim, which we've adopted post October 7th, the money that we've raised for them, it's vital for their reconstruction. When I was there last, I was chatting with the Secretary General of the kibbutz, and she said to me, I can't imagine rebuilding without the help of JNF Canada. It would be impossible. So yes, little old JNF Canada can't have a profound impact upon the whole country like Tacoma, can with hundreds of millions of shekels at its fingertips. But for those places where we make an investment, it's transformative. If you go to the Sderot and you talk to the mayor and say, what did the Resilience Center do? What did the Animal Assisted Therapy Center do for your community? Alon Davidi will go on and on about how it's been a vital asset for his people. And we're really, really proud to be a part of it. Can we be in every city and in every corner of the country? No, but we bat above, or rather we punch above our weight is the right metaphor. We punch above our weight, and we're really proud of what JNF Canada brings to the table as compared to other JNF operations around the world, and also as compared to other pro-Israel charities around the world. So we're really delighted that the impact of our dollars has led to the transformation of Israelis' lives.
Okay, we'll get to the. I want to hear more about the post October 7th stuff. I just want to finish with the lawsuit stuff. So, what do you think? I mean, how high up is this this issue with the CRA? Is this a few bureaucrats that are low level that have the ability to do this damage to you? And where does it stand right now? Like, I read somewhere that you have to wind down, that you were just in court. So tell us, like the last week, what's been going on?
So We do not know every single person who's had their fingers on this file, but we do know that a file as high profile as ours has gone to the senior leadership of the CRA. A decision about a venerable charity, 100 years of experience, wouldn't be made willy-nilly. As well, in the political sector, we know that it's been brought to the highest political offices in the land. So we do know that this was discussed and considered. With respect to where we are right now, we had received a letter from the CRA in August saying, you need to wind down your operation within 90 days. Winding down means basically moving your assets to another arm's length charity. And we thought they were mistaken because we still have a case before the courts. Why would we wind down? If we get a good result from the court, we'd have to wind back up again. It doesn't make any sense. So we sent them a letter in the middle of September and said, we don't think your logic makes sense in this letter. This is what we believe is the appropriate statute that applies to us, and we're really in a precedent-setting stage. So it was the reality is that there's no statute that's perfect for where JNF Canada stands. Nevertheless, September 25th, we sent this letter. We finally got a letter on November the 6th from CRA that seems to suggest that that our wind down isn't required on November 13th. We had it reviewed by a number of lawyers and formal officials. So we are moving forward as a not-for-profit. We are not dispersing our funds at this point, and we're going to move forward towards our case at the Federal Court of Appeal, which we expect to take to be held in the spring of next year. And in the meantime, we are advancing a judicial review to the Federal Court of Appeal, because we believe that our revocation should not have been published prior to our day in court. As you know, Noah, you're a Canadian, you know that we believe in the presumption of innocence. And if you take away a charity's standing before you have your day in court, what does it say? It says you're guilty before you've had your opportunity to prove yourself. So we indeed will be in the Federal Court of Appeal. We went to the federal court, and they ruled that they didn't have jurisdiction to make a precedent-setting decision. We're a novel case, as I've said before. So that judge kicked it up to the higher court, the Court of Appeal.
And a novel case meaning it's a unique situation, basically.
Correct.
Okay. So you're still raising money now. You're still operating as JNF Canada until you're forced to wind down, or they decide that it's irrelevant.
Well, we're operating as a not-for-profit. So if one makes a donation, it's not a donation. We'll call it a contribution. There's no charitable receipt, but there's many, many nonprofits that operate in Canada, and people are welcome to make a gift to them, a contribution, and it's just a gift, and they don't get a receipt for it, unlike a charitable donation. So yes, we're functioning. We just had an event just the other night with Jonathan Conricus and Brett Stevens. So people are coming out. We're still doing the Israel education that we're committed to. We're still about connecting Canadians with Israel, driving that Zionist ethos. And we can do much of this work as a not-for-profit. But again, it's much more advantageous to be a charity, as certainly if someone wants to make a large gift, it is very nice to be able to get a charitable receipt, for that gift. But I have to say, we're really proud of Canadians. They've been making gifts with or without a receipt. The day after we were revoked, we had a gift from somebody for about $140,000. And he said, I don't want a receipt. Just take it and thank you very much. So Canadians have been generous. Canadians have been supportive. And we called upon Canadians to write to the Prime Minister and tell him, sit down with JNF Canada. We did 2 appeals. The first one gathered 10,000 letters, and the second one gathered at this point about 7,000. So our supporters from coast to coast are speaking up on our behalf.
So if people are hearing this and are angry, besides obviously donating to JNF Canada, what could they do to help this cause?
Right. Well, certainly the Canadian government cares about what Canadians think. So if there's Canadian listeners out there, write to the Minister of National Revenue, write to the Prime Minister. Their emails are easy to find, and tell them, you're upset about what's going on, and they should sit down with JNF and sort this out. As I said, earlier in the conversation, we've offered many off-ramps to solve this problem. We don't need to be litigating. It's a waste of the Canadian taxpayers' money for the Department of Justice to be preparing for these cases. Why don't we just have the Minister of National Revenue put us in a room, the CRA in a room, and say, work this out? Because there's no question there's an off-ramp that doesn't require litigation. There's an off-ramp where both parties can be happy.
Great. So very interesting. Let's talk for a couple of minutes on the philanthropic situation post October 7th. How did the events of October 7th, 2023 affect the philanthropy in Canada towards Israel?
Canadians, as you well know, Noah, are incredibly Zionistic. And so on October the 8th, the fundraising started. Everybody knew it was going to cost billions of shekels to take care of all of those people who were affected by this horrific event. And so every organization, not just JNF, every organization went out, and people responded incredibly generously. We raised, I don't know how many millions of dollars within the first month. It was just incredible. The key thing was right after October 7th was taking care of the immediate needs of the folks on the ground. And we did use KKL as our partner during this emergency, as our agent is the correct word, to help us get money to families that needed a place to stay, children who needed care. As you know, people left without even a toothbrush. People needed basic supplies to get their life started. So we provided funds for those emergency basic needs. I had a chance to visit one of the hotels and to see the kids in a program that we funded, and it was incredible. These kids, they were from Shlomit, they were removed from their homes, their lives were turned upside down, but they were having fun and enjoying and doing things outside, and that's what it's all about. This is our extended family, and we had to be there for them. And then after the emergency and months came to an end, we started thinking about what should we be doing next. And as I said before, we can't solve the problems of the country. We don't want to. It's way beyond our capacity. So we decided to adopt one small place. And our representative in Israel identified Kibbutz Kisufim, which, as you probably know, was a kibbutz that was hammered. The oldest hostage being held is actually from their kibbutz right now. And we just fell in love with these people. I think they fell in love with us. And we decided to say, let's rebuild their social service infrastructure, their daycares, their playgrounds, their youth hubs, a hope and healing center, all sorts of things to make life just a little bit better for the folks at Kisufim. And rest assured, the kibbutzim across the region are being adopted by other organizations. So nobody's getting left behind. But we picked Kisufim, and it's like a match made in heaven. We love those guys.
Way to go. This is it's really great, and it's moving that to see the support that these communities are getting. They definitely need them. Great. Lance, thank you so much for your time, and good luck with this. We hope you have your day in court, and you avoid your day in court.
Thanks, Noah, and I'll certainly keep you up to date on what's happening.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to donate, they can find JNF Canada. Look them up on Google.
JNF.ca.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bud. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe.